Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. Welcome to the first official edition of 60 Days of History with ZaZa Ali. I am your host, ZaZa Ali. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I'm very excited to be launching this. I'm going to get into the details real quick in just a second. But first of all, I wanted to let you guys know I'm going to be speaking live in Los Angeles Sunday, June 9th at Baba's Vegan Cafe. We have limited tickets available. I'm going to be doing a lecture slash presentation, which I'm very excited about, titled The Gods Are at War. Part one, Behold, I Saw a Pale Horse. And then part two, Mind Over Matter, A Divine New World Order. I'm also going to be doing a book reading and book signing of Ancient People. I am very excited. This is my first event in quite some time, and I'm excited to be here doing it in Los Angeles. So Sunday, June 9th, Baba's Vegan Cafe. I'm going to post the link in the description for information on tickets, and you can also go to my website, zazaali.com. And then I am also going to be speaking in Atlanta, Georgia, Saturday, June 22nd, at Gallery 992. I will also post the information for that event as well. Very excited about being in Atlanta again. And yeah, limited tickets available. Same thing. We're having sort of private, intimate settings. But I'm very excited to be back in lecturing mode. I used to not like to say the word lecture. I used to think it sounded too like academic and too, you know, too serious. But now I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the academic perspective and the serious perspective because these are serious times, and we can talk about and discuss serious things. Most importantly, the self, which is the most important thing, and we should be serious. Thing we should be serious about. But we can also get together and have a good time and have a meeting of the minds, and raise the vibration of the consciousness for the sake of the greater good. So yeah, the gods are at war. I'm very excited. Saturday, June 22nd. I don't know why my brain is discombobulated trying to get these dates out. But Saturday, June 22nd, Gallery 992. Tickets will be in the description. And if you're in my membership channel, I do have discounted rates available for you guys. I've already posted that on the membership channel. I have 10 tickets available at the discounted rate. I forgot to post that, but I'll post that in the membership channel. Anyway, with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for being with me today. This is a new what should I call it? This is a new series, quote unquote, that I'm going to be posting on YouTube as well as all of my social media channels. 60 Days of History with ZaZa Ali. This is officially day one. And what are we talking about? What is the purpose of this? As a helicopter flies over my head, I'm not sure if the sound picked up, but as you guys should know, I have just released my most recent book, textbook, Ancient People, a Social Studies and History textbook, Volume 1 with ZaZa Ali. If you have sent me an email regarding your order recently, or if you have questions about your order, you can send them to info@zazaali.com. But everybody that has reached out to me, I have responded to all of you guys with shipping updates. I'm super excited that this book is getting ready to be in your hands. And in honor of that, to celebrate its release, as well as to really be able to stretch my legs out a little bit and talk about history and my love of history and the historic periods and these legends and wonderful, powerful men and women of ancient days that we're going to be talking about, which I intentionally selected cultures and historical figures that are not so well known. And we're going to talk about one of those today, Sakanouye no Tamuramaro. Once I finish the 60 days of 60 days with history with ZaZa Ali, and again, today is day one. So if nothing else, you'll be able to hear me talk about this. Um, Once I finish the culmination of the 60 days, I'm going to probably take it off of social media and package it up and have it available for free on my website for those homeschooling parents or teachers or the people that actually purchase the book. This will be a sort of complement to all of those things. But in the meantime, it's going to be for everybody else. So, welcome to day one of 60 Days of History with ZaZa Ali. Today's topic is Sakanouye no Tamuramaro, which is probably my favorite. And this might change in the coming days, but he's probably my favorite historical figure in the book just because I've been studying history. An avid student of history and have been studying it for a long time. So most of the figures in this book I had learned about in college or over the years, but Sakanouye no Tamuramaro I learned about from Runoko Rashidi. He had a small passage in his book, Africans in Asia. Well, it's called The African Star Over Asia, the Black Presence in the East, and so he had a small passage in there about him, which is what initially brought him into my awareness. And then I went on and did some research and found out a lot more. And I wanted to make sure that this particular chapter of the book, Africans in Asia, really highlighted and spotlighted his life in a sort of broader way than really anywhere else I've ever seen. And I'm only saying that not as a flex, but because as I was looking for doing research on his story and his life's work, um, there is limited information available. And so I'm sure one day when I take my journey to Japan and go and retrace his footsteps as well as the footsteps of his family, I'll be able to get more solid, concrete information. I'm also aware that his historical, uh, his history is probably more available in Japanese and in content that is. Or in books and writings that are more Japanese in terms of, I wouldn't have access to that. But I'm just saying, he is the a very powerful presence and the model by which what became known as the samurai would be formed. So what I'm going to start out reading is this is going to be a reading. The 60 Days of History with ZaZa Ali will be based around me reading content from the book, and then talking and giving context. So Sakanouye no Tamuramaro is featured in chapter 4, Africans in Asia. So I'm going to read a couple of passages from the intro. Our chapter begins with the history of the legendary Sakanouye no Tamuramaro and the legacy of the men of the East, which includes Tamuramaro's father and grandfather. Information regarding the men of the East, who appear to be skilled warriors for hire or mercenaries, is hard to come by. Japanese historians label these men as peasants and try to minimize their value when referencing their contribution. This is a great clue in understanding these ancient warriors and why there is little information available regarding their legacy. Sakanouye no Tamuramaro was the example for which the samurai would be modeled after. He came from a family of men that embodied what he became historically known for: supreme fighting skills and a temperament for running civil affairs. There are different schools of thought, including modern historians. African people may have migrated to Japan and China, or these ancient people may have been natives to those in the surrounding lands. Tamuramaro's family is said to have arrived in Japan by way of Korea. Modern genetic testing links the Japanese back to the Andaman Islanders and other ancient people. And yeah, I actually didn't plan on reading that part. That's not even in my tabs. But this chapter is titled Africans in Asia in honor of the late Runoko Rashidi, whose groundbreaking work, African Star Over Asia, The Black Presence in the East, was foundational in the research for this chapter. In Pipino's Historical and Geographical Dictionary of Japan, the Sakanouye are described as an ancient family of warriors descended from Achi to Omi. An account of the family's ancestors' move from Korea to Japan is found in the chronicle of Shoku Nihonji in a petition for higher official rank made by Sakanouye no Tamurumaro's father. Sakanouye no Karitamaro was his name, pardon me. Considered the most illustrious branch of the Aya family of immigrant descent. The Sakanouye legacy maintained a long tradition of expertise in archery and horsemanship, becoming hereditary court generals in Japan beginning in the 7th century. Later members of the Sakanouye family, until the early 14th century, distinguished themselves as poets, scholars, and legal experts. And you can see here an artist rendition of Sakanouye no Tamuramaro of Japan leading his troops in battle. The term samurai comes from the Japanese word saburau, meaning to serve, and was first used in 702 of the Common Era to describe mid to low ranking court administrators and later armed imperial guards. Their title was mostly symbolic, referring to their loyalty to the emperor. By the 10th century, when provincial governors began offering heavy rewards for military service, the samurai as we know them came into being. The term eventually gained strong aristocratic overtones and brought great prestige to the samurai's lineage, so much so that warriors would recite their ancestry on the battlefield. And the ancient Japanese proverb, which is noted here on this page that I'm reading from, is for a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. This particular page gives a chronological timeline breakdown of the men of the East, who it, was the tribe of mercenaries or warriors that Sakanouye no Tamuramoro's father was from, as well as his grandfather. So it gives a timeline of the men of the East, of his father's, legend or legacy, as well as some of the things that were happening in the background in Japan that led for the need for the men of the East to become more prominent figures, and then also that led to the birth of Sakanouye no Tamuramaro. He was known as the paragon of Japanese military values. Sakanouye no Tamuramaro is regarded as an outstanding military commander of the early Heian royal court. The Heian period, 794 to 1185 CE, derives its name from Heian Kyo, which means the capital of peace and tranquility, and was the original name for Japan's early capital city, Kyoto. It was during the Heian period that the term samurai was first used. According to Papineau, the word comes from the verb samurau, or better, saburau, which signifies to be on one's guard. It applied especially to the soldiers who were on guard at the imperial palace. The samurai have been called the knights of warrior class of medieval Japan, and the history of the samurai is very much the history of Japan itself. For hundreds of years, to the restoration of the Meiji, turning my lights on, hang on guys. Restoration of the Meiji Emperor in 1868, the samurai were the flower of Japan and are still idolized by many Japanese. The samurai received a pension from their feudal lord and had the privilege of wearing two swords. They intermarried in their own caste, and the privilege of samurai was passed on to all children, although their heir alone received a pension. The paragon of military virtues, Sakanouye no Tamuramaro, was, in the words of James Murdoch, in a sense, the originator of what was later to develop into the celebrated samurai class. He provided in his own person a worthy model for the professional warrior on which to fashion himself and his character. In battle, a bona fide war god. In peace, in battle, a bona fide war god. In peace, the gentlest of manly gentlemen and the simplest and most unassuming of men. According to his biographers, Tamuramaro steadily worked his way up the military ranks, first serving as a lieutenant of the inner palace guards, advancing to minor captain, and then to middle captain. I don't know why I keep stuttering. Normally my reading is much more clear, so bear with me. For a decade or more, it was necessary to keep up the pressure. Wait, okay, hang on. Oh, okay. At length, in 791, a commander was appointed and given the title of Saito Taishi, or envoy for the pacification of the East. This deputy was one Sakanouye no Tamuramaro, celebrated in Japanese history as a paragon of military virtues. Tamuramaro preceded his superior officer to the front in 793, and in 795 they both returned to the capital in triumph. For a decade or more, it was necessary to keep up the pressure against the Ainu and to encourage farmers to settle near the frontier, to provide a permanent defense against raids and sallies, which Tamurumaro's successes had not entirely checked. In order to finish the affair, he was given a new commission in 800 and sent off again. In a series of campaigns lasting until 803, he finally accomplished his purpose and was able to push the frontier as far as Izawa and Shiba, where strongholds were built and garrisoned. So important was his task in the eyes of the court that the title of Saitai Shogun, or barbarian subduing generalissimo, which he was the first to hold, was sought after by the highest military officers in the land for the next 1,000 years. Throughout his career, Tamuramaro was rewarded for his services with high civil as well as military positions. In 797, he was named Barbarian Subduing Generalissimo, and in 801 and 802, he again campaigned in the north, establishing fortresses at Izawa and Shiwa and effectively subjugating the Ainu. In 810, he helped to overpower and attempt to restore the retired emperor Heizai to the throne. In 811, the year of his death, he was appointed Great Counselor and Minister of War. Tamuramaro was not only the first to bear the name of Saitai Shogun, but he was also the first of the warrior statesmen of Japan. In later ages, he was revered by military men as a model commander and as the first recipient of the title shogun, the highest rank to which a warrior could aspire. There was no one to match these warriors, particularly the imperial troops, who were not nearly as of the same metal. They were known as Azumabito, or men of the East, and their praises were sung in early Japanese literature. Sakanouye no Tamuramaro continued this tradition and followed his ancestors in service to the court. Anthropologist Alexander Francis Chamberlain noted, and we can cross the whole of Asia and find the Negro again, for when, in far off Japan, the ancestors of the modern Japanese were making their way northward against the Ainu, the aborigines of that country, the leader of their armies was Sakanouye no Tamuramaro, a famous general and a Negro. Tamuramaro was one. Oh, wait. Nope. Let me stay on point. So I have my pages marked here so I can make sure you know what I mean? I do this the right way. I promise you, as my 60 days go on, it'll be a lot smoother in terms of my transitioning my pages and my reading. But isn't this a beautiful structure? Um, Kiyomizu Dera was founded in 780 by General Sakanouye no Tamuramaro, subduer of barbarian tribes. It is named, quote, Pure Water Temple after a sacred waterfall located on the hillside. The temple was burnt several times by rival monks from Heian. The present buildings date from the early Edo period. Kiyomizo Dera today belongs to the Shingon Hoso sect and is dedicated to the worship of Canaan. This photo shows the Hondo, or the main hall, which was reconstructed in 1629, with its south veranda rising dramatically on 49-foot pillars against the mountainside of eastern Kyoto. The veranda consists of a large stage where religious dances were held, with flanking stages on each side for its orchestra. The original Hondo, before the Tokugawa reconstruction, had been the throne room, the Shishiden, of Emperor Kamu when the capital was in Nagaoka. And I will get my pronunciations right, guys. So don't write me yelling at me telling I mispronounced somebody who came up. When Kamu moved the capital to Kyoto in 794, he disassembled the Shishiden and sent it as a gift to Generalissimo Tamuramaro, who in turn donated it to the temple. where it was reassembled on the present site. The building's palace of origins accounts for its cypress or hinoki bark roof rather than the more usual tiled roof. Sakanouye no Tamuramaro was one of the few soldiers whose military exploits had managed to raise him to power and place in the councils of the state, and it was he that established the model on which later generations of aspiring warriors were inspired to follow. Before starting on their journals, later shoguns or generals went to worship at his tomb and invoked the help of his spirit. Sakanouye no Tamuramaro was buried at the village of Kirusu near Kyoto, and it is believed that his tomb is known under the name of Shogun Zuka. Tamuramaro is the ancestor of the famous temple Kiyomizudera. He is the ancestor of the Tamura daimyo of Mutsu. I promise you guys my pronunciation of these words are going to get better, especially as I do my events and have to continuously read this content out loud. Most of the time I've read it, I've been reading it, which I've read it probably 1,000 times at this point. It's always in my head, so saying it out loud is always different. But as you can see on the screen here, the map of Japan, and then on the right-hand side, I've highlighted the area of Kyoto, where Sakanouye no Tamuramoro's burial site is located at the village of Kurisu near Kyoto. And then the red region in the upper right-hand side of the map is the Tohoku region in red, which is dated to around 803 CE. But this is where Sakanouye is the area where the men of the East and his father came from. So, and it's interesting because later on in the story of Yasuke, which is also featured in Ancient People in this same chapter, he does end up going back into Kyoto, and I was always very curious to know if he knew the story of Sakanouye no Tamuramaro. The shogun was a commissioned military leader hired to dispose of enemies of the throne. And I also have a couple of pages where I highlight and go into detail about the samurai's warrior, uh, uh, not warrior, their armor and the way that they dressed. And I'm going to read a passage from that, as you can see on the screen here. This is on page 233. But I go in full detail about each particular aspect of the traditional samurai suit on the page after this. But the armor of a Japanese warrior is known to have evolved from Korean and Chinese inspiration. Now, you notice that it's noting Korean inspiration, and then the reference to Sakanouye no Tamaramaro's family being of Korean descent. Um, and those people, those original Koreans, were described as having black, quote unquote, oily skin. The armor of a Japanese warrior is known to have evolved from Korean and Chinese inspiration. Helmets and cuirasses were produced in Japan as early as the 4th century. During the years 794 to 1185 of the Heian Period, these cuirasses evolved and developed into a more common style of armor that was used by the samurai class. It was called the do or dao. Makers of Japanese armor began utilizing leather with lacquer to waterproof parts of the armor. The ancient Japanese samurai armor and helmets were developed during the 4th century, and these were mostly made of leather thongs and iron plates. During the Heian period, the creators of such pieces began covering parts of the armor with lacquer for weatherproofing, since doing so prevents the armor from experiencing unnecessary damages. At the end of the Heian period, iron and leather scales were utilized to create different types of Japanese armor, and the parts were linked via leather, then silk lace. In the year 1543, the Portuguese introduced Tanegashima, which changed the course of Japanese warfare. This led armor makers to alter the design of their armor to plate armor, Bullet-resistant armor were also created, and these were called the Tameshi Busoku, Tameshi Busoku. Make sure you guys, when you get your books, especially with the children, emphasize when you come across words like those words, especially in other languages or representing other cultures, to just stop and take a second and to just learn how to properly say the word or sound it out loud. I mean to say, sound the word out, right? Because it's always harder than what it appears until you start practicing learning how to say these different titles and names that are maybe different than our native tongues. Tameshi Busoku. It allows samurai warriors to continue wearing their armor despite using firearms. Different parts and components make up the samurai armor, and all of these are created using a variety of high quality materials. Steel was usually the element used, however, other materials that were utilized include bamboo, leather, cloth, and wood. Additionally, the samurai armor was also layered with bright lacquer to safeguard the armor from various types of damages that are caused by Japan's harsh climate. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today for 60 Days of History with ZaZa Ali, featuring passages from Ancient People, a Social Studies and History textbook. This is a full color, 349-page historical expose focused on ancient civilizations around the world. It is available in paperback and hardcover. This book places emphasis on vocabulary, spelling, critical thinking, and more. There are more than 450 photos included in this book as well. The topics we cover: Hawaii's last monarchy, the Moors in Spain, the Kandakis of Ethiopia and Kush, the African presence in Asia, and Pharaoh Hatshepsut in the 18th dynasty. You can get your copy at zazaali.com. I will also have all of the information in the description where you can go straight to getting your copy. Peace and love.